What's up, everybody? Episode 5 from the WFISD Career Education Center. This is the Free4All.
Free4All.
We've made it almost to December.
How?
Well, FCC doesn't monitor us too much.
Apparently not. Yeah, it's a little different than over the airways at KFDX.
I have to tell you. So, like, I've worked with lots of different hosts or different people that do different things. When I was working on the radio, there are different people that let that music bed breathe. That's what I like to call it. Like, let it breathe. You let it breathe a little longer than most.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I like it actually because I never know. I'm like, okay, when's MJ gonna hit it?
Well,
You should see me over here.
Yeah.
when we get our new theme music that we're working on, that will hopefully be okay.
Yeah.
I'll breathe even longer.
Some people let it breathe, and you let it breathe. So you always keep me guessing. It's good. I like it.
That's what Grant's thinking every time we start this.
I'm like,
thing.
wait a second.
How long is MJ
When's
going to wait?
When's he gonna jump in?
Well, I'm MJ. I guess Grant calls me the host of this podcast. I wouldn't call it that. With us,
What would you call it then?
one of the three on this podcast.
Like defining the relationship?
Yes,
We're not to that. This is 5. We're not ready for that yet.
We have our resident coach turned athletic director, Grant Freeman, and the producer of this podcast, the WFISD technology specialist. He's so special, Chad Johnson.
Multimedia specialist. I don't want to offend the technology department.
Wow.
Shoot, I screwed that up.
Multimedia specialist. That's what whenever I always send everybody to Chad when they're, like for playoff games or whatever, and I make sure that I tag in their multimedia specialist, and some of them will tag me, what does that mean? I said it means that he's going to answer your question, and I'm not.
Fair enough. Thanksgiving was this week, and that is famously your favorite holiday, Grant. So how'd it go?
It was great. So actually got the double Thanksgiving. So started at my parents' in San Angelo, got the double plate, the plate and bowl combo going, went back twice.
Wow.
Thank you. And then got it the next day at my in-laws' house in Brownwood. So we went down what we call the Triangle of Death from Wichita to San Angelo to Brownwood to back. So got to take a tour of Texas.
I've made that drive to San Angelo. It's not fun.
Where does that nickname come from?
My wife and I driving it.
As
Triangle
in
of
disdain for driving it.
Just it's a lot of driving. Just I don't know. It's just a lot of Texas to look at, and there's nothing to look at.
Thank goodness for satellite radio now, because you get into areas out there where you hit seek on the stereo.
Yeah,
You're not listening to our
keeps
podcast
spinning.
on the road, Chad?
Right.
Come on.
No, hey, you're lucky to have
That's
internet
right.
out there.
Okay.
That car Wi-Fi is coming in handy right now.
There you go.
Just so you know.
This is true. That's the new thing. Let's move on to our current events for the week. Quickly recapping last week a little bit as football season seems to be winding down quicker than maybe we would have liked here in Wichita Falls, down to 2 area teams remaining. That's because the Rider season ends in a 55-42 loss to Frisco Emerson.
Yeah, it was a really good game. I will say this, nothing to hang your hat on, losing to Frisco Emerson. It was an outstanding game, but I'm here to tell you, that quarterback for Frisco Emerson is one of the best I've seen live in a long time. He's going to Oklahoma on a scholarship, I believe, this next year. I believe he's a 24 kid. Going out next year, going out early, going to Oklahoma. That might change based on, their new offensive coordinator. But he was the real deal. He was as advertised, and there are players that make the game look easy. He was a player that made the game look easy. He was just – you could tell he was on a different level than everybody else on the field. But credit to Ryder, man. They did not – A, they stood toe-to-toe with him. B, they jumped out on him big time. Emerson did on Ryder, and Ryder fought all the way back. Wichita kids don't give up. They give full effort for it doesn't matter what school it is, and that's one of the things that I've noticed since I've been here for 8 years. And proud of them, proud of the way that they took the season out and took the program out. They did a great job, and hats off to Ryder on just an outstanding season, but also an outstanding program.
That's one thing we were talking about in the stands. It was 48-14 at the end of the third quarter. Emerson had taken their starters out. Well, Ryder got it to a point they had to put their starters back in.
Yeah.
It's a weird feeling as a coach. I will tell you when you feel like it's in hand and you take everybody out, it's really hard to get them back ramped up to go back in. That sometimes you see it more in basketball than you do in football, and sometimes it's like, wait a second, we did this a little too early, or we're in trouble now.
It's down to 21. Ryder gets an onside kick, score quick. I think there's a minute 50 left. Only down 2 touchdowns. We're sitting there like, it's still a long shot, but they've at least made it to where they're uncomfortable over there again.
Yes.
So
Well, you make them have to go back.
Kids.
Yeah, you make them have to go back and scheme and look at it. And that you wouldn't expect anything less from a Wichita Falls team.
That marks the third and final WFISD team to finish off its season. So crazy to think, but Ryder, Old High, Hershey, football wise at least, we're done.
Yeah, it's both coaches and I talked about it. I think I expressed this on this podcast that how weird it was. It was just a very strange feeling, and both of them called me this weekend, because Hershey ended the week before and Ryder, and they were like, man, it was the weirdest thing. And I said, I know, I didn't know how to explain it either. I didn't do it justice because it's just such a different feeling than it ever has been. Normally as a coach, you kind of have your speeches prepared, win or loss, what happens at the end of the game, and you just really don't prepare for this situation. It's so unique. It was just so different, and that's we kind of all three shared a moment there of like we didn't really know what this was going to feel like, and we weren't sure that it was going to feel like that. So again, a proud athletic tradition. Steps rides away into the sunset, and now we begin a new one in 2024.
Without looking at data, 3 rounds deep is nothing to sneeze at, but this is the shortest this is the shortest we haven't had a team in the playoffs in a regional final in a while, right?
It's the first time, I believe, since I want to say like 2017, 2016, like the first year I got here.
Right.
I think 2016. 2016 was the first year I got here that we haven't had one play past the third round.
Which is impressive. Just getting past Thanksgiving is nothing to, like I say, nothing to shake your head at, but to have teams every year playing in a regional final is impressive.
No doubt.
In the coaching realm,
and it being spread across all 3 schools.
Yeah, in the coaching realm, you kind of have markers, and so you have like, hey, we've made it, playoff markers. So you get into the playoffs, we've kind of made it. Then the next marker is really playing on Thanksgiving week, so playing in round 3. And so we have consistently, for as long as I've been here, had somebody in round 3, and then kind of your next marker after that is December or getting to the state round. So the quarterfinals, semis, or final. And so, man, again, it just shows you how good of football we've got in this area.
You mentioned, coaches kind of have that speech ready. Mm-hmm. I guarantee the speeches for Kyle Atwood and Casey Hubble in this Holiday Jacksboro game went back and forth in their head because this game was wild. I was at this game Friday night, 49-48 in overtime. The Tigers winners, they went for 2 after scoring a touchdown to walk it off. We were hosting a game at the stadium that night, so I didn't get to go to that one, but we were kind of following it, and it looked at multiple times. I didn't text you because I knew you were there, but it looked like at multiple times either team could walk off and run off and hide with this one. And so you didn't really know how it was going to end. And I think I made the comment in the stadium. I said, hey, when they went to overtime, I said, somebody's going to go, whoever gets the ball second, whoever wins the flip is going to go for 2 because you want to, this game could go on all night if you don't. And sure enough, it was, Holiday went first. You knew they scored, do what they're supposed to do, kick the extra point. And then you knew that Jacksboro was going to, we just knew it. And it's whether you can stop that play or not.
How about I saw y'all's highlights. We were driving to Stillwater, and I was getting updates from you and Ben the whole trip. That 4th down play in overtime.
Incredible.
I think Lando, how many tackles did he break? Almost gets tackled, kind of throws a heave-ho up into the back of the end zone. Kid catches it.
Literally.
We may have to get some video from you to put on this podcast of that because it was –
Sure.
You talk about game of the year. That might be so far play of the year. Just when you talk about the – no play's better than Keogh's catch. But when you talk about the moment in the game in a 3rd-round playoff game, 4th down overtime to score that touchdown was pretty impressive.
Well, not just the effort of being able to throw the ball. What's really hard about that, and again, we've talked about this. I wish I had a whiteboard that we could show, but the where they caught that pass at is really hard because as a quarterback and a receiver, it's really easy to hit landmarks like the back pylon, the front corner of the end zone, working your way out of bounds. That was in the dead middle back of the end zone. That's not a landmark, so it's not somewhere they're used to throwing. So you see it a lot in college and pro games. You see them sail that ball. It goes up over the goalpost because it's a hard landmark to see. The depth perception there is really hard. So to be able to scramble around but then throw a dime to the middle of the back of the end zone is really one of the hardest throws that you could ever make.
This Holiday defensive end comes unblocked right at Lando. He sees it, spins, turns. Like, me and Tobin were kind of talking about it. He kind of loses his balance, and his right hand is, like, palming the football, right? He, like, pushes off the ground with that right hand to stay up. If you had a timer on it, I swear, it had to be less than 1 second, 0.9, 0.8. When he looks up, sees what his options are, and has to let go because he's about to get pummeled. And Casey Swan's back there. I don't want to say wide open, but like you said, he floats this ball in. Casey makes the grab, taps the foot, and then immediately your mind shifts to what's next. Do they kick or go for two? And Grant, I think you're exactly right. I was having this conversation with Will Edwards. When the coaches went out and flipped for overtime, Will said, guarantee they're going for two.
100%. Yeah, different people, like, games get into overtime in different ways. I know that sounds weird, but they get into overtime in different ways. That game, as you could see it doing this, you knew that you better end it as early in overtime as you can, and the only way to do that is to go for two, the second person that scores. If a team is way up and then another team comes back to get it to overtime, or things, it's just a different deal where momentum is with that. And so there was only one way that game was going to end, and it was going to end early. If not, it would have gone on all night.
And Holiday going first it's not, Holiday has no reason to go for two, correct?
No, because you don't want to lose the game in the first one. So if you go for two and don't get it and it's 6, all they have to do is kick the extra point. That's the advantage.
You've made it easy for them.
Yeah, that's the advantage to picking going second. You can't go out there and go for two early. If you score, you have to kick the extra point.
Yeah.
Is there ever a time you'd want to go first in overtime?
No. I want to know what I got to have.
Right.
I want to know what I got to have.
I know at the beginning of the game when they flipped, Jacksboro was the visitors. Coach Hubble picks tails. They won the toss and deferred. They go back for overtime. Referee says, "What's your call?" Tails again. Yeah. When you know it, tails.
Yeah,
fails.
Let me say this. I didn't answer that properly. There are times when I would choose a side of the field. So, for example, we've played in places like at San Angelo Stadium has a bowl to the end, and all the kids are down there. I would want to go towards the kid. I would want to go that way. I would not want to go to the field house side. So I would want to go towards the fans because it would be the loudest when you're on defense. So in that scenario, you're picking a side instead of going second. I would go first if there was an advantage, crowd. A lot of people, if you went into overtime in Memorial, the kids section is always on that one side. You might pick that if there's a big crowd.
Okay.
But it kind of depends on how the game's gone up to that point, and you know what your crowd's doing, and if the band's over there, if you got Loy Studer just hammering that thing up there, and they're on a side, and they were down lower, and the kids are right there with them, that could be an advantage to where you would go first. So you're not picking to go first, you're picking the advantage.
Sure.
Or if the wind is crazy, you could also, we've played some games up here in Wichita where there is what we would call a 3-club wind in golf. There's a 3-club wind in throwing the ball, and you might choose that. But I would never pick, hey, I want the ball first.
The fourth and final area team that played last Friday was the Benjamin Mustangs, the defending state champs. Just keep on rolling, 85-40 winners over Jayton. So the Mustangs are into the state semifinals. They'll take on Klondike. They're playing in Sweetwater at the Mustang Bowl this week. It's the state semifinals as compared to 11-man, which is only the regional finals. 6-man's ahead one round, so just make note of that. Part of that reason is the state final game will be on a Wednesday, so they kind of give them 11 or 12 days off, next week after this week. So that's 4 o'clock Saturday at the Mustang Bowl in Sweetwater against Klondike. At this point, I'm confident in saying we'll see you at AT&T Stadium.
Yeah, plus there's one less round of teams. There's not enough teams in that division, so they do that. But, yeah, again, in the state quarterfinal game, 85-40. Come on, guys.
Yeah.
Again, we talked about this multiple times on this podcast, the discrepancy in 1A football, which is 6-man for us, the discrepancy in the state final game. There will be I guarantee Benjamin can probably 45 the state championship game. It's that big a difference.
They did last year, so I anticipate that
it's
again. It's
that big a difference.
Yeah. And let me go back real quick because I didn't read the next game for the Jacksboro Tigers. Grant, get ready. Jacksboro Gunter, Friday, 7 o'clock at C.H. Collins in Denton.
I'm well aware of playing at this round in C.H. Collins as we did last year, but Gunter Canadian, come on. Memorial Stadium, we're calling.
I looked this up. We were kind of laughing a couple of weeks ago about City View scoring 6 points against Gunter.
Yeah.
203-6 is what Gunner has outscored their opponents 3 rounds into the playoffs. So
Wow.
far.
So you could almost look at that at Canadian as well. I'm telling you,
Canadians
the state
199
championship
to
game,
43.
the state championship game is next week. It may be the game of the year,
Yes.
Gunner Canadian.
It looked great at Memorial Stadium.
Oh, Chad Johnson will be excited on that microphone, guys, if we could get that here. That would be one of the best games you'll ever see.
Canadians 199 to 43. I did look that up as well. So
I think Jacksboro probably scores a touchdown on Gunter, but congratulations, print the T-shirts.
Print the shirts.
2 other football notes to talk about, some local games this upcoming Friday, not local teams, but being played in our area. Albany will play Collinsville Friday, 7 o'clock at Iowa Park's Hawk Stadium. And here in Wichita Falls at Memorial Stadium, West Plains taking on Glen Rose. That is a 6 p.m. kickoff.
It's going to be both of those games are going to be great games. Albany, the defending state champ, Collinsville playing out of their minds right now. Really good game against, that's going to be I think that's a Thursday game. I think that's.
Did I have that wrong?
I think they moved it to Thursday, probably since you wrote this, but I think they moved it to Thursday. I'm not totally sure on that.
Okay.
They were trying to play at Memorial on Thursday and chose to play out there. So I don't. Maybe they moved from Thursday to Friday then. In that case, West Plains Glen Rose. West Plains, a newer school, second year. They have done a great job this year. They have been just steamrolling everybody. It's kind of not in the Gunner model, but they've been really good. And so Glen Rose, a traditional powerhouse with a good friend of mine, Cliff Watkins, as the head coach there. And this is going to be a high-scoring, high energy game. It's going to be a lot of fun out at the stadium. So if you've got nothing to do, come out to the stadium and watch. You're going to see some great football.
Fantastic. Let me quickly touch on a couple of things over at Midwestern State. We talked last week about the men's soccer team advancing to the 3rd round of the NCAA tournament. They were off last week for Thanksgiving, so the team's back in action this Friday. It's December 1st at Stang Park, 3 o'clock start. 3 o'clock scheduled start against Colorado State Pueblo. I say scheduled because there's a noontime game as well. If that were to go late, Midwestern would get pushed back. But if you're a soccer fan, plan on being at Stang Park 3 o'clock Friday for the 3rd round game for Midwestern State.
It's a Sweet 16, right?
Correct.
Yes. Get out and support Midwestern, man. We've got to get more people in our community out at one at the WFISD games, but 2 at Midwestern. Like we have, it's one of those things that, man, we don't understand how good we got it. You got a really good Division II college here, and their athletics are really good. You've got some of the greatest. I mean, like we do a good job here in Wichita Falls ISD and our surrounding area of producing high school teams that are competitive and win on a statewide stage. Midwestern on a national stage. Get out and support them.
Speaking of winners, Midwestern State men's basketball, women's basketball for that matter as well. Both teams opening Lone Star Conference play this week. So if you're a hoops fan, you want to see some great college action, Midwestern State has the Thursday, Saturday home games this week at DL Ligon.
It's crazy we're already into Lone Star Conference basketball play. Just flying by.
Because Lone Star's expanded so much
like
into
47
basketball.
teams.
I was going to say that. Bigger than March Madness.
Well, we're talking college. Just jump into the Division I football ranks because it's championship weekend across all these different conferences and college football playoff implications and things like that. So I guess let me turn it over to you, Chad, because you are a resident college football fan. Which of these is most which of these conference championship games are you most looking forward to, other than the one you're going to?
Man, could you ever? I mean, is there ever a game you don't want to see other than the SEC championship game? I mean, Alabama, Georgia, winner, you've got to think has an inside shot at a CFP. I know we'll have some debate on whether Alabama should be in or not. But,
sure.
I mean, we all want to sit here and say SEC is overrated. We're tired of hearing about the SEC, but at the end of the day, they're the conference that's consistently winning championships.
Right.
I was going to say, somebody go beat them. Before I have a conversation about that, somebody go beat somebody that comes out of there. Even the 2 seed out of the SEC, somebody come tell me that. I'm telling you this, though. I'm looking at these games that you got lined up. Oregon, Washington, I am not a Pac-12 guy by any means. I loved this game when they played. I have loved watching both teams. I keep telling you guys I really like Washington. But Oregon, in the same breath, is, outstanding, and they played one heck of a game. It is very rare for me because I'm a 4-box kind of guy. I like watching multiple games, and I watch and see things and do whatever. That was the first game this year that I kept on the full screen and didn't change it and watched the entire game. That game that was at Washington back in October. It was outstanding. I can't wait for this game. I think it is just both of these teams should be in the college football playoff. They won't be, but both of them should be.
This is a Friday night game, right?
Sure.
You don't know.
If it's a Friday night game, I will tell you where I will be during the Canyon
Grant
West
will be in
Plains
the office.
Glen Rose. I'll be in the office watching this game.
I tell you what, man, some of these point spreads, though, 9.5.
Tobin and I were talking about
For
that.
Oregon, who has already lost to Washington.
9.5. Okay, I didn't see that. 9.5. Vegas.
Right.
I mean, I'm not a
goodness.
gambler, and I don't pretend
That's what I'm saying.
to know what I'm talking about with these spreads. But I mean, I will say I can. Yes,
should be
I'm
a
an
pick 'em.
Oklahoma. Yes, I'm an Oklahoma State guy. I used to be a Texas guy, but I follow my money. I mean, even 14.5 to me. I mean, I think Texas is going to win. I do think Texas is going to win, but I think 14.5 is a little high.
I'm taking the points on both of those
Yeah,
games.
and even Iowa, Michigan. I mean, I think Michigan's going to win, and I think Michigan's going to win handily. But I'm not sure Iowa gives up 23 points in any game.
Well, I don't know that they can score half a point either. So I'm just saying, I don't know that they can kick a – they might get a safety.
It's funny you say that because I saw a tweet this morning, actually, that was like, Wolverines are minus 23.5, but the over-under is like 30.
The over-under on the last game was 24, and they hit an under. It was an under. The over-under was 24, and this is two college football, like Division I, Power 5 college football, and it was an under. They hit the under. Get out of here, Iowa, with your crappy offense.
So I guess the best way to kind of, at least in my opinion, talk about this is let's kind of talk about the top 8 teams in how they get in or don't get in. Is that an okay place to start?
Yeah, that's fine.
We start at number 1. How does Georgia not get in?
They don't. They're in.
I agree. Chad?
I mean, it'd be a long shot. I think. I mean, obviously, Alabama would have to beat them. Let's just start there. I mean, but even then, it'd be.
You're not going to jump
tough.
them. You're not going to take the two-time defending national champion who hasn't lost in 2 years out of a game when they've won all this year. So this is the third year that they've been undefeated by losing to Alabama, who's also perennial one of those top teams. You're not taking them from 1 all the way to 5. I just look at it as you're not taking them from 1 to 5 because their loss would be better than any other one loss at that point. You're keeping them in the top 4. They might be 4, but you're not taking them all the way to 5.
I heard last night as I was falling asleep, 1 seed has never fallen out in the last week.
I can't see them falling even to I'm going to be honest, like it's at 3 maybe.
Okay. So lose to Bama, 3 worst.
Yeah, I mean, they'd have to lose by 100.
Okay. Number 2 team right now is Michigan. How does Michigan not get in?
I think if they lose to Iowa, they're out.
If Iowa scores more than 3 points, Michigan should be out.
Fair enough. Agreed.
You hear that, Harbaugh?
Number 3 team is Washington right now. How does Washington not get in?
I think the Pac-12 title game is a
Winner go in.
Right.
Yeah. So Washington, again, I just touted that game huge, but I just don't think you can take them both.
Correct.
I don't. I think you have to take the champion.
Yep.
Because
You're either going to
again,
have an undefeated Pac-12 champion or a one-loss Pac-12 champion.
well, and that's the thing. You got to go back in and look at what the committee was told. They were told to rank championships higher than the other.
Yep.
And so whoever the champion is going to be the one that's in. It doesn't matter. The other one's out.
Okay. So that handles 3 and 5. Let's go back to 4. How does Florida State get in or not get in?
This is going to sound horrible when I say this, but Florida State needs to be out because they don't have their quarterback. They're not technically the same team that has gone undefeated this year. You can't, and if they win this game, then whatever. But I'm just telling you, they are not a better team than half of the teams right now because they have lost their Heisman Trophy, candidate in
Correct.
Jordan Travis.
So do you punish a team for going undefeated when their quarterback gets hurt?
I think you have to, based on if you're trying to. Now, again, if they win, then I don't think you can keep them out. But I still just don't. I don't think, and this is my personal opinion and only the opinion of Coach Free, I don't think a ACC champion that beats a number 15 Louisville team without their quarterback is the same as a one-loss Texas, a one-loss Washington, a 2-loss Oregon, a 1-loss Alabama. I don't think you can keep those, and I know that sounds horrible, but they're not the same team. If you line that team up without their quarterback against any of those teams and they lose by 10 points.
I agree with you. I also read, though, leaving an unbeaten Power 5 conference
Can't do
champion
it.
out
Yeah.
is unprecedented.
I know you can't do it. It's frustrating because they will get in and they will get destroyed.
Yep.
And we could have had somebody that would have made it a game.
Correct.
And that sucks, and I hate it. And injuries, right, wrong, and different, especially to a kid, should not play a role, but they do. They do.
Yeah.
It is part of the game, and it does. And I will be interested in what the committee looks at. They're going to have to look really good in beating Louisville on offense. And again, I wish there was a better team playing them than Louisville.
I think the committee has made a statement, though, that, I mean, regardless of the debate, if Florida State wins, I think they're in.
You think so?
Oh, I
so.
agree. I don't think it's the right move, though.
Right.
I just don't. I don't think they're the best team of the next 3 teams after them.
Sure.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to move on to the next one if you have a comment.
No, go ahead.
The number 6 team in the nation right now is Ohio State. How do the Buckeyes get in?
I think they're in trouble.
Yeah, they're done.
Because I think
they don't play.
I mean, if Texas wins, Texas is going to vault them.
Yep.
You would assume.
Right.
Oregon, if Oregon wins, Oregon's in. I think there's still some debate, and I know we're going to get into this. Oregon, Alabama, Texas.
Sure.
I mean, Oregon. I'm still not real sold on Oregon, but I think Ohio State. I don't think Ohio State has a chance.
Because they don't play. That's
Right.
the only thing. Like, the last taste in your mouth that you're seeing is them losing to Michigan. And
Right.
so them not being in the conference championship kills them.
Well, think about a few years ago when the Big 12 didn't have a championship game.
It hurt them.
And they had Baylor and TCU both sitting there, both with legitimate arguments to be in the playoff. And I believe they both got vaulted the last week because they didn't have a championship
they didn't
game.
play.
Right.
Yeah.
The scenario I have is Florida State, Oregon, Texas, and Alabama all lose. Maybe Ohio State gets in. Anyway, not worth it because very unlikely. How does Texas get in? Okay, you win the Big 12, you beat Oklahoma State, and Alabama loses.
I mean, right
Florida
now,
State
Texas-
loses?
Florida State and Alabama and Oregon lose.
Right now, Texas is ahead of Alabama, correct, on the poll that came out
Correct.
last night. I mean, I know we had this
Head-to-head
discussion
matters,
a couple
yeah.
of weeks ago that I think head-to-head matters. Now that the fly in that ointment then is they've got Oregon ahead of Texas, which, we can sit here and debate all day long. How do you compare resumes? They've had one like opponent. Texas destroyed Tech, and Oregon barely beat Tech. Yes, that was early in the season, but
My biggest
that's where the problem is
Yep.
going to be. If you have the 4 spot and you're sitting there with Oregon, Alabama, and Texas all sitting there staking claim to that spot, if you will.
Well, and let me be real clear. If Florida State loses, which whatever, but if Alabama beats Georgia, Alabama's in. I don't care what Texas does. Alabama's in. Like that.
Okay,
And
there you
here's
go.
why: because that one win is better than any win Texas has, including the win over Alabama, beating the number 1 team, the 3-time 3 regular seasons undefeated,
Yep.
2-time defending national champion. If you beat them, that one win is better than Texas's win against you, and that puts them in.
The SEC champion has never missed the college football playoff.
Correct. So you can't.
I think they'll be in, but I also think, I think it's going to be tough if Alabama and Texas both win. Let's say Texas beats Oklahoma State handily, 14 points, 21 points. I think it's going to be tough for Alabama to jump over Texas. I could actually see a scenario where Georgia gets in and Alabama doesn't.
I don't.
That's crazy to think about, but
I don't, because I think we're looking at this wrong. I think your conversation that you're having is between Alabama and Texas in that scenario. Alabama is in. They're the SEC champion. Your conversation is between Georgia and Texas, and who's the better team there.
and then you got, then
Because
then you
they're
gotta
not.
debate.
Because
Yeah.
Georgia's not the SEC champion at that point. And I know this sounds weird, but if Alabama beats Georgia and they're the SEC champion, that moves them to a different tier. Then you're having a conversation between the Big 12 champion and the 2-time defending 3-time regular season undefeated champion Georgia versus the Big 12 champion in Texas. And I don't think that's you take the Texas-Alabama head-to-head and you throw it out.
Interesting. I love
think
the
we're
way
looking
you're
at it
phrasing
wrong. Yeah.
I really like the way you're phrasing it because you're right. I have on here, is it Texas or Alabama? But you're right. If Alabama wins, it's
not
Texas
and
or
Alabama.
Georgia.
Yeah, it's Texas and Georgia.
I love
and
that.
every person on that committee will take Georgia.
It's just such a and I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I still go back to, and I've been reading this a lot on Twitter here lately. Why what's the benefit of these teams scheduling these big games, non-conference games, if at the end of the day they're not going to matter?
They don't. Again, look at what the committee was given. The number one thing that they were given is conference champion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that is rule one. So up until now, when you don't have a conference champion, all of those things matter. Then after this weekend, that number one thing on the list matters. And if Alabama is Is the SEC the best conference? Yes or no?
You're never going to. I agree. You're never going to leave an SEC
But
champion out.
absolutely. So that's my question. As you're doing it data driven, is the SEC the best conference? Yes or no?
Yes.
Absolutely.
So the champion has to be in. It does not matter. So again, the conversation then comes down to: is the Big 12 the next best conference? No, the Pac-12 is. So it diminishes the Big 12 champion, and it puts them in a light where you're having to have the conversation between them and Georgia, not them and the SEC champion.
Okay, 100% agree. Now let's run a hypothetical. Alabama wins.
Mm-hmm.
Alabama's in.
Mm-hmm.
Georgia's in.
Mm-hmm.
Michigan wins the Big Ten.
Okay.
And then who gets in? Undefeated Washington, undefeated Florida State, or Texas?
Undefeated Washington, because the Pac-12 is the next best conference to me. So they're in. And so then the conversation becomes Florida State, who's the ACC, who's the least of them. I think they're behind I would rate them SEC, Pac-12, Big 10 or Big 12. I think that's a wash, and then ACC is the least of the Power Fives, and so I think
if you have a one-loss Alabama SEC champion and you still have 3 undefeated teams there, I think that's your 4 finals.
But I'm saying there could be 4. Florida State would get the short end of the stick.
Well, if Alabama beats Georgia, you're only going to have 3 undefeateds left, right?
Michigan, Washington, Florida State.
Right. So
I'm sorry. You're right.
I think that's the scenario that keeps Georgia out.
Okay.
That's the only one.
Interesting.
Because I just think you're gonna, as a committee, you're gonna have a hard time leaving a Power 5 undefeated conference champion out.
Exactly. And then Georgia fans are like, "Wow, we lost one game."
Can I just say, and I know there's a lot of debate on this, I love that next year is going to be a 12-team playoff. And things I love about it, you're going to have some debate on should that 11 seed be in there, but it's going to be way back there.
I'm for chaos. I'm for chaos the whole time, and I think a 12-team makes it more chaos because I think what ends up happening, and again, this is the same scenario, which you're essentially in a 12-team right now, kind of with your conference championships in the week before, because, I mean, it knocked Ohio State out now, so it's win or go home. But I think the biggest thing, and I said this last week, I love chaos. Like, I love all these scenarios, and I want to see the most chaotic thing happen.
Right.
But with 12, when you get to 12 and you sit a week and then you're playing and people get hot, it's what happens in March Madness. People get hot and momentum makes a difference. You could see – now, I don't know that you can knock a 1 or 2 seed off, but you could see a 10, 11, 8 seed get all the way to maybe the semifinal, kind of like TCU did last year.
That was the discussion with the baseball playoffs this year, with the bye that the first round teams had, that they were at a disadvantage. Same argument.
It happened. Some years it doesn't. Some years it doesn't.
Here's what I like. Here's one of the things I like about the 12-team playoff next year. And you talk about chaos. In a 12-team scenario this year, schools like Oklahoma State and Iowa are still in for a chance to get into the playoffs.
Are playing to get in,
Right, because Iowa and Oklahoma State win, boom, they're in. They've just knocked somebody else out that you could argue is deserving. Not saying that that's going to happen.
If Iowa wins, I will shave my head. Iowa should not be any again. Get after it, Kurt Ferentz. You're doing a great job, but my gosh, fire your son. That offense is horrible.
I don't think they'll win either. I'm just saying I like the scenario that you're going into a conference championship game
with something to play for,
where both teams in the game have a legitimate shot of continuing on.
Iowa plus 23.5. Thank you very much.
My Lord.
All right. Games are Friday, Saturday. Selection show is Sunday. We'll have something to talk about next week. Who gets in, who gets out, and who screws up this weekend. Quickly on to some national sports. The Dallas Cowboys on Thanksgiving, another blowout win. That's not what I'm here to talk about. I am here to talk about the next 5 weeks, though. A crucial point in the Cowboys season. Seattle, Philadelphia, Buffalo, Miami, and Detroit. 5 teams, all 500 or better. 4 of them currently in the playoffs. 3 of them currently leading their division. Thoughts?
My thoughts on it are this. It doesn't look as daunting as it did a couple of weeks ago. Seattle looks like their wheels have fallen off. Buffalo kind of the same, and Detroit looked really bad on Thanksgiving. So the one that hits me is the Philadelphia game, mainly just because Philadelphia looks like Bill Simmons calls them the Michael Myers Eagles, because they sleepwalk and they look dead for the first 3 quarters of every game, and then all of a sudden they come back to life and they kill you in the end.
They're living right, aren't they?
Yeah, and Miami, I don't know where that game is, but Miami looks great in warm weather and dome, so it's going to be either they look like they can score a ton, and then when they go, if it's cold in Dallas, if that game's in Dallas and it's cold, keep the roof open, Jerry, because
I was
going to say
it's Christmas Eve.
It's a big It's a big difference. It doesn't look as daunting as it did the other day, but the Cowboys haven't beat a team over 500 yet. So I don't know.
Seattle's Thursday night. Are they in Seattle or in Arlington?
In Arlington this Thursday.
Okay.
Yep.
Win.
Which that obviously helps the Cowboys.
Correct. Philly at home. I mean, think about it. You lost to them on the road, so if you want to try to be in contention for this division, you got to win.
Do they have to go to Buffalo?
Yes, they have to go to Buffalo. They have to go to Miami, and they host Detroit. Buffalo's like 500 right now. They've looked like terrible.
They're such a weird team because like even the other night they looked awesome.
I drive the Josh Allen is a fraud train.
Really?
Yep, hate him.
I'm telling you what, man.
Really?
He's Jekyll and Hyde. One week he's the best quarterback in the NFL. The next week,
I think 0-11 career in overtime.
I don't have an opinion on him. I don't know because a lot of the stuff that I watch, I don't know. He sticks his head down and runs, and that's great. And then some of the throws he tries to make, like he's got a cannon, but I think I don't know. The jury's out for me because a lot of times, man, like the choice route that he threw the other day. Choice routes are really hard, and that looked like a high school choice route because like sometimes the receiver chooses different than the quarterback does. Like to me, it was kind of on him, kind of not on him because he was getting a blitz. You know, like
he had to let it go.
Yeah, the receiver has no idea that he's getting blitzed, so he's going to make the choice based. And everybody was killing Gabe Davis, but Gabe Davis doesn't know what's going on in the back. It's just that's why those choice and option routes are so tough.
What are your thoughts on y'all's thoughts on those gunslinger type quarterbacks? You've already mentioned Josh Allen, but the Brett Favres of the world, Tony Romo's. People that can make the most amazing throws you've ever seen, but then they have you scratching your head too. Yeah.
He reminds me more. He reminds me more of a young John Elway. Remember those teams that they would get in the 80s where they would get to the Super Bowl and just get destroyed, and he would run and do something. John Elway was a lot like that. He was really good and didn't turn the ball over as much, but man, it just was really good, but just could never get over the hump. And Josh Allen just hasn't even got over any humps. And again, I don't think they're coached really well. I think the biggest thing that killed them is when Daboll went to if you saw the offense up until like Daboll was there, they were really, that was when they're playing Kansas City and they were making playoff wins and they were 13 seconds away from getting to the conference final or whatever it was. And then Daboll left. Ken Dorsey was not a good offensive coordinator. Now they've got Joe Brady of LSU fame and they've scored more points, but I don't know that he's got the right fit at play caller. Y'all remember a couple of weeks ago I talked about how important it is play caller and quarterback being on the same page. It makes a difference. Yep. And since Daboll has left, they have not looked good on offense.
When you talk about Daboll, I think it was the year the Bengals went to the Super Bowl. They beat Kansas City in the divisional round and played Cincinnati in the championship game.
Yeah. To me, the jury's still out on Josh Allen because of that.
That kind of tells you, too, how little talent Daboll has in New York.
One with Tommy DeVito.
He's
the Gabagool.
My fantasy quarterback right now. Anyway, 5 games. I'm happy to see the Cowboys go 3-2.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
2-3 is realistic.
I mean, let's be real. We're not on Philadelphia's level.
Yep.
I mean, we need to get in, be able to win a playoff, and have a chance to go to Philly and I mean, if you're doing that in the second round of the playoffs and you got a chance to win, then that's all I'd take.
Can I say, and you guys know I'm not the biggest Cowboys fan in the world, but McCarthy has taken a lot of criticism pretty much from day one that he got the job. But this year with him taking over play calling duties, a lot of heat's still on Dak Prescott, but Dak is a completely different quarterback this year than he's been the last couple of years.
Why?
I think it's Kellen Moore. I'm anti.
That's where I think it's because McCarthy is. I think he's catered his offense more into around Dak's strengths.
West Coast, get the ball out of your hands. Don't read progressive. Throw the check down, throw the check down, throw the check down, throw the ball down the field.
Italian.
I mean, it's like, again, Kellen Moore, progressive read, tricky, trying to dress things up, totally different.
Yep.
Mike McCarthy, West Coast, get the ball out of your hands as fast as you can. Let your players do whatever it is, and then throw the deep shots, deep shots, deep shots. There's no reading to it. It's throw the ball. I mean, just look at – he's not turning the ball over. Why? Because he's not holding it, trying to read it. He's either throwing it down the field or throwing it out quick. I go back to the Josh Allen conversation. The play caller and the system matters, and it has to fit the quarterback.
Brock Purdy.
From football to the NBA.
That was shocking when I saw that yesterday.
Yeah, Mark Cuban's selling a majority stake in the Mavs.
I'm sorry. How much?
Majority?
Yeah, how
$2 billion.
$3.5 billion.
Well, $2 billion is what is. I think were they valued at 3.5, and he's selling 2.2 billion of them.
It's like 57% or something.
Something like that. I'm sorry, he bought it for $285 million and just sold it. I'm not real good at math, but I think, because he keeps the basketball, like he keeps the operations side of it. So I get to still do whatever I'm doing. I just made, $11 billion off of this transaction. Show me the downside.
I just never thought Cuban, I just never thought he would.
Mark Cuban, can I borrow some money?
Yeah.
Can I get a loan?
And,
please?
there's been a lot of
Low interest
speculation
rate.
that this has been, Cuban's been talking about wanting a new arena.
Yep.
He's been real big on the legalizing gambling in Texas.
Right.
And inside of that casino aspect, having a new arena.
I
Is
saw
all this
that
kind
was
of
part of
into
that press conference yesterday. Was it the reason for the sell and the reason for the amount of money was this group that's coming in from Vegas that's bought him out is guaranteed a new arena of some sort, but kind of what they're doing out in Arlington, the resort based, all of those things. So I don't know if they're going to come out to Arlington and try to do that and just put them all together. I don't know what that plan is, but I did see stuff that there was going to be a resort-based aspect to it.
That's what Cuban wants, so we'll see if it happens.
And you do have to wonder, Cuban's talked about politics in the past. He's talked about all these different interests. In the last week, he stepped down from Shark Tank, and now he's sold a controlling interest in the Mavs. Is there something else catching his eye in the future? I don't know. I mean,
heard it here first, if so.
I don't know.
Mark Cuban over some of the other ones we got in there right now.
All right, Chad, cue the music. What are we doing?
What are we doing? What are we doing?
What are we doing?
What are we doing?
You guys watch NFL Red Zone this weekend?
I didn't, but I know what we're going to talk about. I did see some of this part of it.
It's like 6:15. I think the show ends around 6:30, and all of a sudden you start hearing like alarms in the background. And Scott Hansen's like, "If you guys hear an alarm, sorry, we're working on that." And then he comes back a few minutes later. All right, folks. So first in my 25-year broadcasting career, the alarm's going off, and we're being told we have to evacuate our studio.
Oh, wow.
So he's like, control room's got to leave. I got to go. We're just going to leave up this game. Sorry.
See, I'm sorry. I'm just letting you know if alarms are going off, they say you got to evacuate. I wouldn't even be telling people. I'd be gone. Coach Free, there would be a Coach Free size hole in that wall. I'm not, because again, what do these people care? Like, they're just watching the game. Like, who cares? Bye.
So,
Was it a good game they left on?
There was only like 2 games left, and they left on whichever one had more time. I don't remember, to be honest. I thought it was hilarious that even happened.
He came back in.
He did come back.
He came back in.
7, 8, 9, 10 minutes later, and said, "We're all good. The alarm's going on. They're going to shut it off, but we're safe." And he wrapped up the show. It was hilarious. It's
I hear alarms and they say get out.
They're in Englewood, California, so I think Englewood Police and Fire, get there fast and let our guy Scott get back on the air. Huh?
Yeah, get after it. I mean, I'm telling you, I'd have been gone.
Chad, you have a what are we doing this week?
So I've thought a lot about this. I can be a pretty intense fan. I can be a little hard sometimes to sit around and watch a game with, but that's also on a pro aspect. Mm-hmm. I can also get frustrated watching college games and high school games, but to me, there's a difference between pro games and college and high school games. So I'm in Stillwater Saturday. OSU's getting boat raced in the first half. It's 24-6. I mean, they can't do anything right. Weather's terrible. Team's playing terrible. They've got everything in front of them, and they're just wet in the bed. They left the field at halftime to a chorus of boos. And I'm just sitting here thinking, the big motto at Oklahoma State is loyal and true. How loyal and true is it when you're booing your team off the field? And they've been, and let's be honest. Did anybody think Oklahoma State would be sitting here 9-3 playing in the Big 12 championship game when the season started?
No.
I didn't.
So I'm like, yes, they can be frustrating to watch at times, but I don't know, man. I'm just sitting here thinking. I was actually kind of in awe. I was like, I can't believe this is happening right now. And you're worried about these guys transferring. You're worried about putting this atmosphere in place that. And I say this as the game I saw. I know it's not just this place.
Yeah.
But
I'm a zag. I'm going to be honest with you. If they're not cursing or saying, if they're just booing, and they paid for a ticket, get it. I mean, and this is from a game administrator. Like, that's one of the aspects of my job.
Yeah.
Again, I feel like if you buy a ticket, and you don't like what you see, you're welcome to boo, and you're welcome to share your displeasure until it crosses a line of cursing, speaking to a referee or speaking to a coach or speaking to a kid in a derogatory manner. But, I mean,
I just think, to me, my line has always been drawn on pro versus amateur. Now, granted, I know college football is not
just the same.
I know college football is not really that amateur anymore, but I don't know. I sit and look at it even from a fan perspective, or not fan perspective, but a player perspective. The transfer portal is real.
Well, you're being true, and you're being true to a school, and these kids again, and that's, I don't know, like, again, not everybody's built like you. That's the thing is, somebody paid, and again, college games are crazy now. I mean, it's $100+ a ticket. If I pay $100 plus a ticket, and I see them come out and poo in the bed, I mean, I'm not going to say, hey, let's go team. I appreciate that I spent $1,000 to bring my family here.
I'm not saying I was cheering. Yeah. I'm not saying I was cheering at all.
No boo birds from the Johnson family, though?
Yeah.
Was the band booing? Was Sarah Beth maybe booing?
The band was not booing.
Okay.
No, they don't boo. They play their instruments.
Oh, boo.
There was a point in the time where we were sitting around saying we're here for the band.
Yeah. Sure.
I mean,
yeah, I get that.
Sure.
I just think if you pay that much money, and again, as long as you don't cross the line of cursing, being derogatory to specific people, like again, I think you're allowed to because you paid.
We're going to hit fast forward here, begin to wrap this thing up. One thing before we go, I went home to Boston this week. You guys fly often?
Mm-hmm. Not often, but
okay. One of the most demoralizing things I think of all time would be flight attendants who have to do those like safety precaution things before you take off, show you how to put the seatbelt together or pull down the mask. How many people on a plane? If there's 100 people on a plane, how many people pay attention?
7.
Under?
I don't.
I saw it once and was asking my wife, what in the world are they doing?
There you go.
If the plane's going down, that crap's the least of my worries. How many people have survived a plane crash?
There you go.
That's the least of the things that are going on in the coach-free aisle.
I just got to thinking, they come over, they say, please direct your attention to our flight attendants for a safety demonstration. Every set of earbuds is in, eyes are down or closed. It was a 6 a.m. flight.
Yeah.
Certainly no one's paying attention.
Bye.
Okay. I think that's all the time we got today. Anything else from you, Chad?
No. Looking forward to some good games this weekend.
Yeah, college football weekend for sure. And high school, we're down to 2 Texoma teams still playing, as well as 2 games being played here in Texoma. So certainly check those out.
Do you have high school basketball starting?
Oh.
It started up the last couple of weeks. I know Ryder and Hershey played last night.
Yeah.
I played Holiday last night, so basketball's getting up and going.
We had over 10 games on the newscast last night across boys and girls, so it's that time of year. Yeah. Tuesday nights and Friday nights are running around to different high school gyms, shooting highlights. It's a lot of fun.
For sure.
It's a lot of fun. We spend a lot of time in the car, but it's a lot of fun. Quick thing, we talked about a mailbag last week. If you want to send us in a question, comment, whatever, I started us an email here for the podcast.
Oh, gosh.
So if you're interested in sending in a note, WFISD Free4All @gmail.com.
Remember, that's a number 4.
Yes, that's WFISD FREE number 4 all ALL @gmail.com. WFISD Free4All @gmail.com. Please, no profanity. I'll have to be.
How many of these are going to come from my mother?
Well, we might get 0. I'm going to have to check.
No, I can just already tell you.
Mrs. Freeman, I appreciate it. Send us a comment, question, concern.
No.
Please do.
It will be filtered.
And we'll see if we can read it on the air next week.
Straight to spam.
All right, Chad, play the music and let's get out of here. Thanks so much for joining us this week. We want to say thank you to our friends at bensound.com and Sound Bible as well for our sound effects. That's going to do it for us here this week on the Free-for-All, and we'll see you back here next time.